This chapter, we will be wrapping up about how to take better steps before the mission. It's always important to gain meaningful skills before the mission, and some of them also including driving. In case there comes the moment of when you are asked to drive, or if you are planning to visit another country and if you want to get a rental car. For example, when using maps, I like to find things like pinpoints to say that I like to go there, using offline coordinates, business names, last but not least, cross-reference checking. If you are doing driving for work, then I would say that's a good job for you. And here's why. Getting used to map coordinates, being lost in unfamiliar zones, facing unexpected weather, and also how to load up a vehicle with a lot of stuff. And since I've also done road trips, that's what me and family have had to do as well. Some of the top things that I could recommend doing are trying out things like national parks, finding other tourist attractions, or if you can go camping, even better. And since I also drive for work, I would also recommend these top terminologies I had learned during my time in driving. Keep your head on a swivel, get the whole picture, and aim high in steering. One thing I could also recommend, if you don't want to drive for work, that's fine, but you have to learn to get familiar with coordinates, especially if there ever comes a time when you might have to drive in the event of emergency. For where you reside, it doesn't matter what state or what country, whatever the case is. Do things like this. Find out the city that you want to go visit, and you want to stay there for a weekend trip, or if you want to stay there for a couple weeks, but do this where you reside and not into another state or country that you're not familiar with. And if you're just learning, when you are at the new city, I like to look for things like these words: hotels. Be on the lookout for hotels, these top details: cost, room arrangements, reviews. Is this a bed and breakfast or a kitchenette? Parking, gym, and also, do they have pool and hot tub? One reason why I mentioned parking especially is because car theft and people getting their cars getting broken into is very scary. And it's also a constant issue, especially for travelers. And even people who just live wherever they are and they're just trying to live everyday lives like you and me. During my time in Canada, my family and I had parked our car, a garage that was meant to be like anyone can park there. And what happened? We walked about a block to get to our car. And then what did we notice? Our car did not have the window smashed, but apparently the glove box was open. And I guess somebody was desperate for money. I mean, let's be thankful at least no one smashed the glass, because that would have just been much more scary. And we probably had to have called the police. So what did we do? We left that parking garage and went back to the hotel and said we'd like to valet our car. If that means for you to call the hotels or email them, whatever it is, to get a hold of them and ask them some of these detailed questions, that's what's going to have to be. And if you're not sure about how to do some of this, talk with an experienced traveler. I also like to look around what's nearby. So imagine this is your hotel here. What's around nearby? Doctor's office, police, tourist attractions, visitor centers, top-rated restaurants, hotels, and last but not least, groceries. Depending where you want to be, and how good is the hotel going to look. If you have to cook for yourself, then okay, then that's what it's going to have to be. If it's a bed and breakfast, then I'll say that's even better. But if you can somehow save money by buying groceries and just cooking for yourself instead of expecting bed and breakfast, but if they serve bed and breakfast setups, then I would just say just go there. If that means to pay for a little bit extra. The hotel that you are staying at, if it's not a good fit or you just don't like the good vibes of it, that's why it's important to look out for other hotels within the area. Because if you need to drop your plans and say we cannot stay at this hotel, we need to go somewhere else. If you are looking towards wanting to change your job, or if you're wanting to just see what it's like, I don't care if you are delivering pizza, online orders and mail, or if you're doing independent platforms like Uber, DoorDash, or Lyft, or if you're a taxi driver, catering service, all about practicing extra precautions, defensive driving, and last but not least, getting used to areas that you're not used to. And don't just expect to get your job at is going to be within the local area. If that means for you to travel far distance away to get somewhere, but if you have to go somewhere that you've never been and you get lost, that's how it works, especially in the world of driving. And you have to just kind of say, okay, I'm not going to freak out, I'm just going to breathe and keep my composure, and we'll try to look at this again. I had done Uber Eats. It was definitely a fun time, but it was not fun when I've had to pay a lot more in taxes because they didn't deduct. But it was an experience to get the idea of what it's like to travel far distance, but also going into restaurants, the Apple Store. I have gone to Walmart to pick up groceries. Sometimes I had to deliver medication, but here's the only requirement. If it was medication, they had to be home. If it was makeup, I could just leave it. If it's restaurant orders, I was allowed to still leave it unless they said I'll meet you at my door. There's also been other moments where I was lost completely in apartment complexes, because apartments are never fun to look around. So when all the buildings may look the same, but when it's nighttime and you can't see anything, that's when it gets more stressful. And I had to call the customer and ask them, where are you located?
So here are 3 tips I've found when traveling abroad, and really it's about making the best use of your GPS. The first one is pretty simple. When you're venturing out from your hotel to go explore around, don't be afraid to go off the beaten track and explore. Before you do that, make sure that you set a waypoint back to your hotel. That way you know, worst case scenario, you get completely lost, you can always get back to home base. The second tip is to make sure that you download the maps for offline use for whatever city you're going to be traveling to. This is coming really handy, as some cities have areas where there's gaps in cell phone coverage, and losing the map in the middle of your trip can be really nerve-wracking. So as long as you download them, you'll always have them even when you have gaps in cell phone coverage. You won't get lost. Third tip is for really extreme cases when you're really off the beaten path, to go ahead and download and print out the maps of the route you know you're going to be on. This is particularly handy if you're traveling with a passenger who wants to kind of plan out the next waypoint. They can be doing it with the printed ones without hogging the phone that you're using for navigation. So those are 3 tips that I have for using your GPS while you're traveling.